Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this 19th of August of the calendar year 2025. As I'm coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. A little sticky out here in Cincinnati, but cooler weather is coming here soon because we know fall weather is soon around the corner, which means hoodies, leaves falling, and of course, football weather as the football is about to kick off here real shortly. Also, at the end of the show tonight, historical nights of redemption, which I'll touch on here a little bit, and really historical redemption because when you talk about personal redemption, any kind of redemption, it's one of the something that makes you feel good about yourself inside, and nothing better than getting payback on the ones that you feel that robbed you and victimized you, which I'll touch on here at the end of the show, right into the boxing segment. Some new people out here. Brief introduction of what I do. This is, of course, a new way here in the 2020s. Everyone wanted to do this. I shied away from it for the longest time, but I had knowledge. I caved in, and I decided to become a part of this. Decided to take up on my own show because I've been in the boxing and NFL fraternities for the longest time. A part of their the work they do, but now I get a chance to do what I like to do best and be a part of my own segment and make my own headways. I said nothing better than be able to create your own ideas and grow as you go along. And that is what I'm doing here with this particular show and this particular platform. I stream live on the social media platforms and it upload to the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You're more than welcome to listen to me on those. Also coming soon, I will be live on the Sirius XM platform as well. Now I got that out of the way. I hope everyone themselves a wonderful day in whatever part of the globe you're in, not just in Cincinnati, but the States and globally, because I've had people, of course, across the pond, especially across the Atlantic who tune in as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get right down to it. Of course, last night here in Cincinnati, it was the really, I don't even partake in preseason scores. I think that does nothing. But the real story about last night between Cincinnati and Washington was how embarrassingly pathetic outside the Bengals' key positions were last night, especially on the defensive side, where basically their first unit just got dog walked by Jaden Daniels, a premier quarterback. Reminds me of the game I went to week 3 last season. And it wasn't just embarrassing. I mean, it was laughable embarrassing. And no, not to mention the offensive line in a one telling play where nobody even does anything has Joe Burrow running for his life in a preseason game where they go, I think, from the 30, and he was declared down forward progress, somewhere like the 2-yard line. And of course, later on in that game, he got tackled. Apparently, it was a horse collar tackle. Looked sort of close. Lost a fumble. But the story here with this is the aftermath of everything that's transpired for them this entire offseason. And I say this wholeheartedly for one simple reason. You don't take care of your needs, you can expect that. Now we're talking about a preseason game where all of this is happening. And of course, there's a bigger outcry as to why Joe Burrow was playing outside one series. We did the first series, they just marched down the field, got a touchdown out of it. But I guess he wanted to stay in, or I guess they wanted him to stay in with guys who probably won't even make an NFL roster, and almost got that guy killed last night in an irrelevant game. And right now, the Bengals brass is getting grilled, and rightfully so. And the Bengals fans are getting grilled, rightfully so. Because we told you, yours truly being one of them, that you wanted to push the narrative of getting Burrow, Chase, and Higgins paid top dollar. You got it to the tune of nearly $600 million between the three players from now to the end of the decade. But you neglected to fill the real needs of your team, which was an offensive line, investing any kind of an offensive line to protect your franchise quarterback, and a defense which has been a laughingstock over the last 2 seasons. And not to mention, there's a fellow named Trey Hendrickson who's holding in because he's not even trying to do anything right now, understandably so, simply because that's what Trey Hendrickson is at the moment. I mean, right now, Trey Hendrickson is there because he's just doing his Marshawn Lynch. And we know what Marshawn Lynch once said at a Super Bowl press conference. We know what that is. Trey Hendrickson is doing his Marshawn Lynch. That's all. Again, I'll touch on Hendrickson here in a bit. But when it comes to last night, it basically is one of the bigger laughers I've ever encountered. And I say this for the simple reason, because everyone pushes their own narrative over here, and they refuse to once again pay attention to the detail. And because they refuse to pay attention to the detail, you had what you had last night in a preseason game. And luckily, nothing worse came out of this. I mean, it could have been worse than what it was. And God forbid it didn't happen. And everybody got out of there okay. I mean, it could have been worse because for a preseason game, the Washington Commanders, who I don't even know who has on defensive roster, I don't think they played any of the first stringers on defense, was going after the Bengals offensive line and Joe Burrow and going after him hard. And they got him pretty good a few times. We know that. And we're talking about a preseason game. And against a second or third string defense, some of the guys, I don't even know who they are. I don't acknowledge. I know they had Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary, but that's all they were. I don't even know about that too much. But it's the part of the problem and the part of the reason why I sit back and laugh at this the crux of what's going on here, because anybody knows me knows I don't push narratives, because I think it's just for people who want their own way and their own silly way, their own childish way. And as a result of this, we had nearly a debacle. Biggest lockout was, nothing really happened. And at the end of the day, another big lockout that took place last night was the fact that Jake Browning refound himself and showed why the Bengals went 9-8 2 seasons ago. I mean, Jake Browning basically saved a debacle of a night. I mean, that's the only reason why they won the preseason game, was because Jake Browning balled out. But here we are again, going to year 6, and we're having to ask the question again: can you protect the franchise quarterback, and how are you going to do it? Now they're talking about working out Dalton Risner to stand up for the longest time for Denver and Minnesota. I don't know what that gets you, but this is why I laugh at this particular fan base and why they're just a laughingstock when I talk about this particular fan base. They want a guy who nobody wants. They want a guy who, when I talk to Broncos and Vikings fans, basically tell me, stay away from him. And they basically want a guy who's, I think, going to be 30 this offseason, been a part of several teams. I don't know all of them. I know 2 of them were Denver and Minnesota. And there's a reason why they let him walk. And now the Bengals want him. Now, apparently they had a good workout earlier today. I don't know what that entails to. And they said, we'll keep in touch. Well, of course, apparently he has other visits, apparently one in Seattle. So we'll see where that one goes. But what do we get out of getting a guy who's 30 and has been basically a father who just bounces around all over the place and is basically a depth piece who sits on the bench more than anything else? Because that's Dalton Risner these days. And I don't know why everyone's so hubbub over him, because the Minnesota Vikings were so glad to send him out the door, especially when they drafted a Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. And it was solidified that position for Minnesota. And now, what do we have at the end of the day? Another case of an embarrassing mess that no one paid attention to because they were so fixated on having their own paid and just basically having their own paid. Nothing more than that. They don't care about building a winning product like the Bengals fans don't, and the Bengals organization don't. But everybody knows I don't put any blame on the Bengals organization, because that's who they've been for the last 30 years, and that's basically beating a dead horse that's basically useless. So I put all this blame on the Bengals fan base, and it's too easy. They make it too easy for me. I said it going to the start of the 2024 season, and I'll say this going through this season: you better start generating results. And I'm generating results doesn't mean collecting paychecks to stuff a bank account, because anybody could do that at any job. You better start putting W's in the win column. You better start getting back to the postseason, and you better at least have another trip to the Super Bowl and find a way to win it, because that's what it's about now. You don't get it done this season. You know the old song, My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion for the Titanic? That song will be playing in my head watching the Bengals fans sink to the depths of humanity. And the stock of the Bengals fans and the Bengals players that got those 3 contracts, especially those 3, they'll fall faster than Enron. And we know what happened to Enron 2.5 decades ago. That's what you guys are staring at in Cincinnati. I know I've got a lot of pushback for it. I don't care. It speaks to their cowardice because they don't know how to accept it. It's basically get the job done or basically be a case of what could have been. And you don't want to have that label smacked against you because you guys decided to overpay for 3 players the caliber of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, and basically neglected to take care of your bigger needs, which is an offensive line and a defense who just got ran on by players and teams I've never even heard of. I mean, they're probably going to get run up by statues. I mean, if you put on a team of statues against the Bengals defense, statues will probably run all over the Bengals defense. That's how bad the Bengals defense has been over the last 2 seasons, and it's been in the 2 games so far this preseason. And it's going to be just an embarrassment and a laughing stock as we approach the 2025 season, unless something dramatic or they catch lightning in a bottle which lands on their lap. Don't expect that to happen. And of course, we have the holding of Trey Hendrickson, which I said all along, a deal is going to get done some way, somehow. Don't know how it's going to be, but it will be done. So, but what happened last night was basically a debacle, despite the official result. The only reason why you guys won the game is because Jake Browning turned back the clock 2 years and basically just got rolling, and that was all she wrote. I mean, that was it. I mean, Jake Browning bailed out a debacle of a situation, which almost like it's like a Band-Aid to a wound, a gunshot wound. I mean, that's what it was. It was a Band-Aid to a gunshot wound. It's still a bloody mess all over it. Why? Because you left your franchise quarterback hanging, especially that offensive line where that play that has gone viral, where 2 guys were just throwing their hands up in the air like, get by me. I'm not even touching you. And that's how that quarterback got beat up pretty good last night. And that's a byproduct of wanting Burrow, Chase, and Higgins paid top dollar and not paying attention to what you needed at the end of the day. And that's why I stopped. That's all I have to say about that. Probably going to be talking about more of this in the upcoming season when I do my NFL preview show Monday night. And, of course, throughout the season, I'll be breaking down every single manageable NFL game by game, every single which way possible, like I did last season. For you newbies out here, I go game by game, make my picks before the game, break down each game, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, the fantasies, and all the good stuff. And I'll be doing that again this season, and I really look forward to doing it. Because last year, I had fun doing it. I mean, I really did. It took me down a road that I used to do way back when I was with all kinds of football stuff while I was doing boxing, because I had a bit of more of a balance. I'll never be a one-sport guy because it doesn't get me anywhere. But back to last night, and I conclude this. If you don't want that to happen, you shouldn't have asked for having 3 players paid top dollar, especially your wide receiver number 2, which could have been replaceable for a cheap price. But you guys were so sick-headed obsessed with wanting T. Higgins on your roster. You guys were so sick-headed obsessed with wanting Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow paid high dollar. And not to mention, at the end of the 2022 season, you let Jesse Bates walk, one of the premier safeties in the NFL, so he can sign a useless, no-good-for-nothing left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr., which had you guys throwing an internet party across all the social media platforms, acting like you got the reincarnation of a prime Anthony Munoz. That's the problem here in Cincinnati, and I stand by that. I love the hell out of a lot of you guys. I love the hell out of all of you do. And I love the team like you guys. But instead of calling for top dollar, why don't you just call for results? Because there's a reason why no one likes I back up here. There's a reason why no one takes the Bengals seriously anymore, especially after that faux pas Super Bowl run in 2021, which basically was gift wrapped because the defense was forcing turnovers all over the place. And we haven't done anything since Kansas City sent the Bengals home in the 2022 AFC Championship game. 2 9-8 seasons and missed playoff appearances isn't going to cut it. And especially in the AFC, which we know the AFC is fully loaded, you need to do more than go 9-8 to do something significant. I'm not sure this roster is constituted enough to even make it to 9-8. That's the problem. I'll be cheering my heart out like a lot of you guys do out here in Cincinnati. I hope I can come up here and say I'm wrong. But so far, it doesn't look like it. getting your quarterback beat up in the preseason there's a lot of silver linings that need to be read. Right now, Bengals fans don't know how to read them. Actually, I don't even know if many of them know how to read, but it's what it is at the end of the day. I'll be touching on that later. Now to the real story that's taking place about 90 minutes west of where I live. It's in Indianapolis. And it's something I've said on various NFL spaces and NFL shows since this signing took place. That Daniel Jones, the former Giant quarterback who the Colts signed for a $14 million guarantee to, is going to be named the starting quarterback over Anthony Richardson. Well, everyone's wondering what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson. I mean, the kid has talent. We know this. We know Anthony Richardson has talent. I'm not going to say he doesn't. I mean, he was drafted the position he was for a reason. But I said all along, I didn't think the guy was NFL ready. And given how he's looked since he's come into the NFL for Indianapolis, when Daniel Jones signed the contract, he didn't sign the contract to watch Anthony Richardson develop. He signed the contract knowing there's an opportunity for him to start. And given the debacle that he had with the New York Giants over the past couple of seasons, looking for a fresh start and looked like he's going to get it over in Indianapolis. Now, I think the Colts are not going to do much anything this season anyways. They have some nice pieces, but where's it going to get you? I mean, I like the drafting of Tyler Warren, one of the pound for pound, one of the top 10 players in the 2025 NFL draft. That was a nice deal for the Colts moving forward. You still have Michael Pittman. You have Adonai Mitchell as a receiver. Of course, Jonathan Taylor as the stand-up running back. Solid offensive line. Great defensive front led by Latu, who's one of the better ones out there. But we talk about this particular position. You knew this was going to come because I don't think the Colts weren't going to pay Daniel Jones $14 million just to sit on the sidelines and watch Anthony Richardson try to make his headway in the NFL, because no one's paying $14 million to have a seat, because that's what they paid Daniel Jones for, to come over here and maybe make their mark. And that's why this decision was made. Now, what does it mean for Anthony Richardson and the Colts? Well, they do have to decide on their fifth-year option, which is going to be in the year 2027. My guess is they don't pick it up. I would be surprised if they did. And what does it mean for Anthony Richardson? Who knows? I mean, he was given chance after chance. Hasn't necessarily made the most of it. I mean, a little bit here and a little bit there, but that doesn't get you anywhere in this NFL, especially when you were drafted the position that Anthony Richardson was in Indianapolis. And that's what we have at the end of the day over there. Daniel Jones was there because he knows he could take the starting job from Anthony Richardson just by staying on the sidelines. And no way Indiana was going to pay him $14 million just to sit on the sidelines. They knew if they gave him the $14 million, he was going to start, and that's what's going to happen. And he's been declared the starter week 1. I mean, they have some nice pieces in Indiana, but where are they really going to go? I mean, you're talking about possibly last in the AFC South, and it's a far cry from what they were during the Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck years. I mean, they had some real great teams there. They have some nice pieces moving forward. May take a year or two to get something going here a little bit, but it's probably going to be a year where I think they finish in the top 5 in the 2026 NFL draft. And where they go from here, especially the quarterback position, who knows? Because I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be their long-term answer. My guess is they brought him in maybe to try and get a push out of Anthony Richardson. But since nothing's come up per usual, I think the head coach, Shane Steichen, announced today that it was going to be Daniel Jones as your starting quarterback. I mean, who in his own weird way, who cannot see this coming? I'm not paying a guy $14 million to hold a clipboard. I mean, if someone told me I could have $14 million just to hold a clipboard, I'd say yes, but I have a good chance I'd be fired before I'm paid that $14 million. Amazing how things work in the NFL like that. Now to what's going on in Cleveland. Now they have about another 7 quarterbacks, which brings them up to like 110 since they came into in the NFL. I mean, I lost count after 75. But it was announced that Joe Flacco is going to be your week 1 starter when the Battle of Ohio takes place. No surprise. I mean, Joe Flacco makes you wonder why Cleveland let him walk to Indy after he took him to the playoffs 2 years ago after Deshaun Watson crapped the bed. And basically, there's a way of saying we should have not let you go in the first place, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day. Why? Because everybody knows when they sign him, this was going to be the result. Now they have, I think, like 5 quarterbacks. I don't know how many, 5, 6, 7. I mean, I know they have 110 since they came back into the NFL in 1999, at least 110, because I lost count after 75. But Joe Flacco is going to be your starter. I mean, 2 years ago showed he had some game left. I mean, at least when Cleveland called him off the couch, got him to the playoffs with a pretty decent win streak in the middle there. Probably get the Cleveland vibe going a little bit. But another team that's probably going to pick in the top 5, because with that roster, hard for me to see how they win any more than 4 or 5 games. I know some Cleveland fans up there are already going crazy thinking they're going to win the AFC North over Baltimore. Good luck with that one, especially with that roster. But I don't know what's going to happen with this quarterback carousel. You know, they have Flacco. They got, of course, in the trade with Philadelphia, Kenny Pickett, the one-time Pittsburgh Steeler. Of course, they added the draft Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to call him a standout. And we know the story with that saga. Got Dylan Gabriel, who was just absolutely abysmal in that preseason loss in Philly, and of course made the childish comments during the game. But, you know, Cleveland's going to be Cleveland. They're always going to be Cleveland, and that's how Cleveland's going to be for the longest time, because they don't know the importance of stability at key positions because they don't have it. I mean, I look at the defensive side of that roster. You're talking about one of the better defensive rosters. We talk about guys like Myles Garrett, the kid they drafted from Michigan, Mason. I know his first name. I can't remember his last one. And the secondary could be as good as anyone, pending that Denzel Ward stays out of the concussion protocol. That defense could be as good as anyone if they want to. But no stability at the quarterback position. And you talk about ownership who doesn't even have a clue of what stability is. And they relied on an individual named Andrew Berry to try and put something together. He hasn't even put anything remotely close together over the last couple of years. This team likely picks in the top 5 this upcoming season because that roster is just a mess. They probably need to bottom out anyways because a lot of the pieces around them just don't mesh well. I mean, they sent Amari Cooper out the door for Buffalo for a bag of chips. That's to tell you why that organization, that ownership is one of the real laughingstocks. Now to what I got a chance to watch the other day. You know, actually I watched some clips of it today and a little bit of it the other day. Actually, I'm going to tie this to almost like 2 subjects almost. It was, of course, America's team on the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry and Stephen Jones. I just pulled up a clip earlier before I went to an NFL Space tonight. And the story of this was the exact words out of Jerry Jones's mouth was, we're not looking for an X and O guy. We're looking just for a guy who can build a relationship with and basically just right along with it. Now, there was also, during this particular documentary, a clip came out where he met with Kevin Detloff, the president of the LA Rams, 2 years after the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade, which everybody knows in the NFL what happened with that one. And Jerry Jones basically told him to his face, I would never do something like that. This is what I've been telling people for the longest time because I lived through this 31 years ago. The real storyline 31 years ago of this was what's going to happen between the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, and then head coach Jimmy Johnson after they won the second Super Bowl. We know what happened at the end of the day. So basically, he basically opened the words out loud on this documentary that I seen out of my own 2 eyes 31 years ago when he told when Jerry Jones outed Jimmy Johnson. Everyone says it was a mutual agreement. It was really a firing, just largely because Jerry Jones's ego doesn't know how to stay out of his own way. A case of where a guy can't get out of his own way. It's been that way for the longest time. Of course, the weird thing is when he first bought the team, he fired probably the greatest coach in the team history, Tom Landry. And he fired him apparently because he thought Tom Landry needed to get up with the times. And now look at Jerry Jones 36 years later after he bought the Dallas Cowboys. The guy who just can't get up with the times. Funny where he is now is the same reason why he asked Tom Landry when he first bought the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, we know what happened with the Herschel Walker thing, which we know is more of a Jimmy Johnson thing than a Jerry Jones thing, because Jimmy Johnson, needed some players to put together that great 2-year run they had in 93 and 94. One of them, of course, being Emmitt Smith. And basically, the trade was done in spite of Jerry Jones. And because Jimmy Johnson was the perfect X's and O's guy that Jerry Jones never really wanted, that's why he was axed 31 years ago. And I'm watching this documentary, and I guess everyone is, especially in the Dallas community. They say the things about Jerry Jones that I've already knew for 31 years. Senile, moron, egomaniac, arrogant, doesn't know how to get his own way, out of his own way, excuse me. That's been Jerry Jones since he fired Jimmy Johnson. I think you can say, wow, Jimmy Johnson was there, because Jimmy Johnson was doing things in spite of Jerry Jones. And because he was doing things in spite of Jerry Jones, that's why Jerry Jones was outed after the second Super Bowl. I mean, that's the only way you can explain it. Because here I am 31 years later, because I remember every day in the Sports Center highlight, Sports Center news, when it was really Sports Center news, the top of the storyline in Dallas was, what is Dallas going to do with Jimmy Johnson? Will Jerry Jones fire Jimmy Johnson? You wouldn't think it would be that incomprehensible to think of back in 1994 after winning the Super Bowl. Leave it to Jerry Jones to do it. And of course, apparently years later, they've supposedly buried the hatchet. Jimmy Johnson, the Dallas Ring of Honor. But I think it's more of Jerry Jones had no other choice but to put him up there, because we know Jerry Jones still can't take the fact that it was Jimmy Johnson who was a driving force to those Super Bowls. But when I watch this particular program and see everything that's going on, especially all the things that Dallas Cowboys fans say about Jerry Jones, yes, you guys are spot on. I mean, I'm not going to repeat it, because it's basically beating a dead horse at this point, because we knew it for 3 decades. But these two, I've seen it. These two, I see what he's capable of. And if you're Dallas, you guys deserve better. Much, much better. And it doesn't help that Stephen Jones isn't that far behind him, because even he acts himself like a fool as I was watching this particular program. Because before Jerry Jones took over, there was a time everyone wanted to wear that star on the helmet for the Dallas Cowboys. You talk about one of the premier flagship franchises in all of the NFL. I mean, this is before Jerry Jones. I mean, the historical runs they've had, the many Super Bowls under Tom Landry. Of course, key players like Roger Staubach, Randy White, Drew Pearson, among many others. And the list goes on. A lot of great guys that wore the star for the Dallas Cowboys. And it was one you wore with pride. Now these days, since Jerry Jones is there, and after he fired Jimmy Johnson, it's basically, you instead of putting a star, you might as well put a clown on it, because the clown of actually Jerry Jones wearing clown's makeup, because that's what Jerry Jones has become since he's fired Jimmy Johnson. One of the bigger clowns in the NFL, ownership, management, whatever you want to call it. And this particular program basically symbolizes everything I've known for 31 years. And I think a lot of people would do too. Because how do you go 30 plus years in between winning forget about winning Super Bowls. You haven't even sniffed a conference championship in 31 years. I mean, last time you sniffed a conference title was when you went to, I think it was Green Bay or one of those teams. I can't remember, before you beat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. You haven't sniffed a conference championship since. And the New England Patriots from 2004, 2014, between their Super Bowls, after they won it in 2004, people wonder if they was going to go back again, and they managed to do it 2 more times in 2007, 2012, lost to Eli Manning. Then, of course, the question was, will they ever win it again? Guess what they did? 3 more Super Bowls in a 5-year period. That's a difference between teams that know how to win and have the right pieces and have the right people to do the right things. Jerry Jones never wanted that. Why? He wanted to do things his way. He was always in his own way. There was even a report in 2006 where Jerry Jones basically wouldn't let Bill Parcells bench Terrell Owens. And basically, a lot of people think that's what ran Bill Parcells out, who basically resigned a couple years later. I have a lot of Cowboys fans, and I have nothing but high regards for them. But I'm sorry, I can't be a fan of Jerry Jones. And of course, the whole saga with him and Micah Parsons, I'll touch on this briefly. I guess Adam Schefter comes out and says there's going to be a divorce, which I don't think there will be, unless someone throws a Herschel Walker type package at Dallas for Micah Parsons. Unless they think they can get a Herschel Walker type deal, which I don't think they will. I expect the whole thing between Parsons and Dallas to at least write it out for the season, because I know it's very, very bad blood. And when Micah Parsons blunt said, "I don't want to be a Cowboy," that's what I need to know. It's not if he had his way, he'd be out of there. Problem is, Jerry Jones is going to do everything he can not to let it happen, unless someone throws an insane package. Question is, who's going to be the team to throw it? Probably no one, because they're going to take multiple first-round draft picks, multiple key players, cut into a part of their main 53-man roster. That's what's going to happen. So this whole soap opera is going to continue. Then again, I don't put any stock in anything after Adam Schefter says, because we talk about lack of credibility. Adam Schefter fills that list. And speaking of guys that work for ESPN, just want to give a cool shout out to Rich Eisen. Welcome back to Sports Center. Cool after the preseason game last night. They did the old retro Sports Center from when he and the late Stuart Scott used to do it. I think it was cool also having Stuart Scott, the thing next to Rich Eisen as he was talking, and the touching tribute to the late, great Stuart Scott. Cooler than the other side of the pillow. Booyah. Rich Eisen was one of the few guys at a time when ESPN Sports Center was actually about sports highlights. One of the flagship guys during that time was Rich Eisen. And I can't say one bad thing about Rich Eisen. I mean, the only thing I can say bad is that he works for ESPN, and we know what ESPN has become. But I can't say one bad thing about Rich Eisen. I mean, he spun it off very well. The NFL Network has his own show, his own podcast. Does games when NFL goes to NFL Europe and some select NFL Network games at the end of the year. But I'm glad to see Rich Eisen back. It was very neat. They went to the 90s version of the Sports Center introductions, basically keeping everything retro and basically making it about sports highlights again, because that's what ESPN was all about. Not the stuff we see today, just sports highlights, brief interviews, brief analysis, on to the next topic. That's what it was. And one of the real masters of it at that time was Rich Eisen. By the way, rest in peace, Stuart Scott. You and Rich Eisen carried that Sports Center for the longest time in the 90s. I said you two were the top two in my opinion. You and Eisen. That takes care of my NFL and football segment. More throughout the week. And, of course, Monday, my entire preview show. I wait for the preseason to end, and then I make my observations. Then I make my predictions. Now to the world of boxing, and the story of the night is redemption. For two guys in particular, because they had some wild things take place, and they were the victims of, but when they had that chance for redemption, they sure got it. First one, we're going to head to Norfolk, Virginia, and it was 36 years ago today in Norfolk, Virginia, where it was a rematch of the worst decision in boxing history. It was the rematch between Pernell Whitaker and Jose Luis Ramirez. 15 months before, Pernell Whitaker, who basically shut out Jose Luis Ramirez, victimized by the worst decision of boxing history when he traveled to Paris, France, due to Don King politics. They get a rematch, this time in Whitaker's backyard of Norfolk, Virginia, and basically they controlled the rulings of it because they didn't want Don King politics involved in anything, which everyone in the fight game knows what Don King politics was all about. And on this particular night, Pernell Whitaker, who wanted to make amends for the only blemish on his record, which basically comes with an asterisk because he basically was robbed by Jose Luis Ramirez, goes into his hometown and basically just pitches a shutout in his own backyard the same way he did in Paris, except this time he got the full credit he deserved, got his redemption, got his revenge, won the unanimous decision. We coined the phrase redemption, revenge, personal vendetta, all we want. For this one, given what took place in Paris, France 15 months before, don't think for 1 second it was in the back of the mind of Pernell Whitaker and his camp, because that's why they put this fight in his own backyard of Norfolk, Virginia. And that is why They wanted this rematch more than anything else at the time, and they got it. 6 months removed from obliterating Greg Haugen, he fights Ramirez in a rematch, not only for the defense of his title, but also another vacant title in the middle of it, because it was what the Whitaker camp insisted on after what took place in Paris. And with this particular rematch, Pernell Whitaker did the same thing here. He did to Ramirez the first time, win every round, and this time the rightful winner by redemption was Pernell Whitaker. And we settled on with Pernell Whitaker, one of the victims of the boxing intelligentsia who never bought into his style because it was perceived as boring, which basically, at the end of the day, it was more of what the sweet science was. In those lighter weight classes, when we talk about the embodiment of the sweet science, nobody embodied it like Pernell Whitaker, especially with the mastery of the art of hit and not get hit and ring generalship. That's Pernell Whitaker in a nutshell. He did it twice against Jose Luis Ramirez. In my opinion, the first fight, he won every round. We know Don King politics robbed him. Second fight, he won every round. This time, he got his redemption, got a chance to add another championship to his resume on his march to going undisputed. And he did it against a guy who some way, somehow got a win against him that he didn't deserve. We're talking about Jose Luis Ramirez. And it's not a slight on Jose Luis Ramirez, who's a tremendous, tremendous fighter. It's just when everybody knows the fight against Pernell Whitaker in Paris, France in March of '88. It was hands down the worst decision in boxing history because Pernell Whitaker shut out Jose Luis Ramirez. But some way, somehow, Ramirez got gifted rounds and got gifted a win. Look at Pernell Whitaker's reaction after the first fight against Ramirez when he was robbed. And look at the second fight against Jose Luis Ramirez, where he basically was got the decision he deserved. Shout out Howard Gaddis. Hope you're doing good out there tonight. And that is what took place 36 years ago today in Norfolk, Virginia. Pernell Whitaker got redemption, got revenge after being victimized by boxing politics, after being victimized by Don King politics. Unanimously decisions Jose Luis Ramirez to become a 2-belt world champion in the lightweight division. That's the first part of redemption. The second one is under some real wild and real bizarre circumstances. And this one was all over the place for the previous 2 years prior to what took place on August of 1996 in Las Vegas. This was Terry Norris versus Luis Santana. The story of this one, we want to talk about redemption. Terry Norris got it and basically left no doubts when he finally got his. But the storyline of this one was the flop that Luis Santana did on 2 separate occasions to Terry Norris that got Norris disqualified. Granted, he was hit illegally. There's no doubt about it. He was hit illegally. I mean, he was. But flopped to get 2 wins over Terry Norris that basically, at least perception-wise, they felt he didn't deserve. Basically, both of them were overreactions. Both of them were acting jobs. And when Terry Norris got him into the ring the third time, that took place in 1996, which happened to be 29 years ago today at the MGM Grand, Terry Norris left no doubt, put the pedal to the metal in the first round, floored him 3 times in the second round to get a knockout win. And to show you how much he wanted that win and how much he wanted that belt back, after the fight, he went after Luis Santana because he felt Santana just basically acted his way to a world championship that Santana, at the end of the day, did not deserve. Of course, I don't know how the hell he got a title shot. First 2 fights were disqualification wins for Santana. First fight, a punch apparently on the back of the head, and Santana acted motionless on the ring canvas that caused the fight doctor, Ferdy Pacheco, who called the fight for Showtime pay-per-view, to scream for a doctor in Mexico, which basically he just laid motionless. And the punch didn't look like a hard punch, but Santana laid motionless with a heck of an acting job. You should have given him an Oscar for that one. Now, the second fight, Terry Norris was dominating Luis Santana. I mean, he won the first 3 rounds, floored him 3 times, but like 2 seconds after the bell, out of nowhere, a sucker punch right hand by Norris, and once again, Santana is acting on the canvas. It should get another Oscar for that one. But yes, I'll give you this one. This the punch by Norris after the bell in the second fight. That was a cheap shot tactic by him. It really was. It was not worthy of a disqualification. Maybe a point deduction. But what an acting job again by Luis Santana. He should be given an Oscar for that one for how he acted by getting the second disqualification win. But what happens in the third fight in 1996? Terry Norris finally gets him in the ring. Basically just says, the heck with it. I'm taking command. Obliterates Santana in 2 rounds in personal redemption. Tries to go after Santana after the fight because he felt Santana basically fabricated and acted, which he really did, to 2 disqualification wins that took Norris's title away from him the previous times. That's how you handle redemption. You get out there, you handle your business, and that's what Terry Norris did. Because, what Luis Santana did in the 2 fights previous was just an absolute joke. I mean, at the time, if you're watching this, when you see Santana just play dead on the in the middle of the ring canvas, I mean, a dog does a better job playing dead than Luis Santana does. When you saw Luis Santana just rolling over and playing dead the way he did, at the time, you thought, okay, something legit happened. I mean, even Terry Norris, after the first fight, said, you hear the words, damn, channeling his inner Ron Simmons. I mean, okay, funky circumstances. Wild scene in Mexico when that happened. The second fight, same thing there, but out of knowledge. There was a cheap shot at the end of the third round by Terry Norris in a fight that he was just thoroughly dominating, which I don't know why he did it. But again, Luis Santana fabricated and acted on the canvas, acting like he was dead when he wasn't, and basically got a disqualification win because he wanted to act dead. And that's why we had the third fight, and Terry Norris said, to hell with it. I'm going to beat you up up and down the ring. Floored him 3 times in the second round. Even the look on Luis Santana's face as the stare down was taking place during the referee's instructions. He knew his 5 minutes were up. He knew he was not going to be able to act his way out of it. And Terry Norris made sure of it when he obliterated him in 2 rounds. So Terry Norris and Pernell Whitaker, who were victimized by wild boxing intelligentsia and boxing scenes, with collecting ills in some of the most weirdest ways possible, got their respective revenges with Terry Norris against Luis Santana and Pernell Whitaker against Jose Luis Ramirez. We know the sport of boxing has always had its own weird share of circumstances, and I'll say circumstances nicely because there's some other words I would like to use. I don't use my platform for explicitories. But when you think of what happened to Pernell Whitaker against Jose Luis Ramirez when he was just blindly robbed in a fight that he basically won every round against Jose Luis Ramirez, and we think of how Terry Norris lost the first 2 fights of that 3-fight series to Luis Santana, where he could reward Luis Santana with Oscar awards when he faked being dead in the ring canvas, that's how you knew there was a problem. And basically, when they got them in the ring again, Terry Norris and Pernell Whitaker took matters into their own hands and basically said, the heck with it. We're going to let our fists do the talking. And that's what happened at the end of the day. You couldn't take away from them when they got their redemption. And we could see the looks on the respective faces of those 2 fighters when they got the wins. You knew they got their redemption. You knew they got their payback. And now they could have gone on with their careers, having to put those dark days behind them because of weird boxing business. I'll just put it like that. Because let's start with this. No way Jose Luis Ramirez won a round against Pernell Whitaker in the first fight. No way Jose Luis Ramirez won a round in their second fight. And what a hell of an acting job by Luis Santana. Instead of giving him the championship belt, it should have given him 2 Oscar awards because he acted dead when he was in the middle of the ring after what happened. Now, granted, as I said, the second time, Terry Norris shouldn't have thrown that punch after the bell, but it didn't help that Luis Santana still wanted an Oscar award. That's what happened to Luis Santana. He should have got 2 Oscar awards, 2 Academy Awards for playing dead in the 2 fights against Terry Norris before the third fight. And that's what it should have been happened to him because that was a heck of an acting job. I mean, we've seen acting jobs all over the place. We've seen flops. We've seen this. We've seen that. Before all of those words flop come through, we had Luis Santana flopping. We had Luis Santana acting. We had Luis Santana faking like he was going to die. When he got rewarded 2 unnecessary disqualification wins against Terry Norris before the third fight, where Terry Norris said, "The heck with it. My fists are going to do the talking, and I'm sending Luis Santana the heck out of here." And Luis Santana was to never be heard from ever again. Good riddance. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, there was a time when the boxing intelligentsia always craved these sort of stories. That's a weird thing, but they don't anymore, because then that's now a part of the theater. As Larry Merchant will eloquently say, the standout great for HBO Sports is the theater of the unexpected, and having guys victimized for whatever reasons. I'll just call them boxing reasons. For many reasons, I'll elaborate on a future all boxing show. But when you think of what happened to Pernell Whitaker and Terry Norris being victimized by Jose Luis Ramirez and Luis Santana, respectively, getting their paybacks, respectively, you knew that they was going to take matters in their own hands, and they did it. They didn't let the judges do the talking. They let the fists, they let the action, they let the skills show it. That's how you take care of business, especially in the area of payback. Pernell Whitaker and Terry Norris did that, respectively, to Jose Luis Ramirez and Luis Santana. I can go on and on about more redemptions. I mean, go on paybacks for weird circumstances in the sport. But we can talk about what took place on this day on 2 separate occasions with those two. It's just some wild stuff. And for the more modern followers who remember when the sport was in the 90s, especially when Terry Norris was a serious challenger to the pound-for-pound title, then those 2 fights happened versus Luis Santana. That's all you need to know. Someone should just put 2 Oscar awards and 2 Academy Awards for Luis Santana for faking death those 2 fights, because that's what he did. And even Terry Norris knew it. Of course, as I said, one of the fights, Norris shouldn't have thrown the punch after the bell, but it wasn't disqualification worthy. Just goes to show you just how people felt sorry for Luis Santana falling for his fake act when he faked death twice against Terry Norris. But Norris took care of business in 96, just obliterated him in 2 rounds, and sent Luis Santana to irrelevancy, where he rightfully belongs. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 19th of August 2025. For those of you who missed any part of this show, these will be uploaded on the audio platforms of Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Spotify is also live, not just the audio, but also the video versions. I will have clips on that particular site as well. And as always, as I tell everyone, always make self-care your number 1 priority in life. You take care of yourself first, all the good things will come your way. If you don't take care of yourself first, or if you're unable to take care of yourself first, nothing else is going to matter. Always focus on you and you first. I learned that the hard way for the longest time. Have a good rest of the night. Enjoy yourselves. Take care. God bless. And I will be talking to you guys soon.